Okay, we are officially getting started. Let's pull this back. Beautiful picture back there without me. I have to Photoshop myself in there. Okay. All right. Welcome to the Conscious Contact Speaker Group of Doylestown's one-day annual convention. We're going to get started here. Go to whisper mode. I need your help in moving seats as close forward as you can so we have enough seating for everybody. And our next speaker, Doreen L. from York, PA, is going to speak on My Surrender. So please, let's hush it up and give her a warm welcome.
Hi everyone, my name is Doreen Lear and I am an alcoholic. My sobriety date's August 9th of 98. I belong to the Roosevelt 12 and 12 group in York, Pennsylvania. We meet on Wednesday evenings at 8 p.m. and it is a step and tradition meeting. You know, we like to say that we practice both with the help of our other home group members, because sometimes ego does get involved. You know, I'm grateful to be here. I'd like to thank Ron and the committee for asking me to come out and share my experience on the first step. My surrender. Well, I'm about to share that experience of my surrender because I think it's a constant state of being. I have to constantly surrender. Can you hear me? Closer? Thank you. Does that work? Okay, gotcha. Surrender is an admission to the power, which I didn't know I was powerless when I got here. The experience of these 12 steps happened to me in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. I started drinking at the age of, I would say 12, 13, Boone's Farm strawberry wine. I was powerless from the beginning. You know, I like to say that I was born and raised in South Baltimore. That's where I'm originally from, Baltimore, Maryland, and I was not damaged with intellect when I got here because I grew up in a middle-class family. My father was the alcoholic in my home. I had seen powerlessness and surrender way before I got to the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. You know, it was an abusive family, abusive home. You know, my father was the drunk that would come home early. You know, he was the type of person like to throw things. You know, I've watched him. My brother got the bulk of his physical abuse because he never really, that I can look back in hindsight and remember him ever hitting the girls in the family. I'm the youngest of 8, so there were 6 girls and 2 boys. So I remember my brother was the one that got the bulk of his madness. Now that doesn't make me an alcoholic. See, when I got to the rooms on August 9th, 1998, I thought if I just stopped drinking, I'd be okay. I'm a first nighter. That doesn't make me different. I just surrendered to the fact that when y'all shared your stories of experience that had gone way beyond mine, I knew that was possible for me. Like I said, I wasn't damaged with intellect. I knew that was possible. When my sponsor shared her experience from a podium, which saved my life, I knew that was possible because I was heading in that direction. There's a page, and I believe it's 317, 319. You know, I'm not a page person either. I share what God puts on my heart, and then hopefully you get that experience with you. You know, I read this page. It said they stopped in time, and that's my experience. I don't know what your experience is, or will be. I'm just here to share mine with that first step, and so it took me 19 years to become powerless over alcohol. Now, I didn't know anything about unmanageability. There's that hyphen on the first step. It talks about then that our lives have become unmanageable. I thought I was managing well when I got here because I had a 5-bedroom house, 3 cars, a career job in the medical field, 3 kids, 3 cars, a dog. I had everything society told me I'm supposed to have to be happy in life, and I want to drive my truck over a bridge every day. And those are sober thoughts. And I wasn't a daily drinker when I got here either, you guys and girls. You know, I thought, you know, if you drank before noon, you become an alcoholic, so I did the best I could to avoid drinking before noon. I'd start at 12:01. Or you ever just get drunk the night before to where you stay up into the next day, but you start at the noon, you know, afternoon the day before. That doesn't make you an alcoholic if you continue to drinking into the next day. I love how Rich put it, because I was the type of person, I had no social skills at the end of my drunkenness, because what do you say after you go to a bar? I mean, what do you say after hello? I don't know, I did a fist step, so maybe, you know, keep me away from your husband, and, you know, you might want to watch your dog too, you know, because I don't have any social skills after hello. You know, I can't tell people about this miserable existence that I'm living, because I don't know how to explain alcoholism before I get here. I don't know that's alcoholism before I get to the rooms of AA. I don't know I need to surrender to the fact of this ego deflation that the book describes. It is killing me, worrying about what you think of me, worrying about not having enough, worrying about putting on the show and acting like everything's okay and I want to die inside. It scares me to death. Those are the things I had to surrender to the fact of this powerlessness over alcohol. See, alcohol was my solution when I got here. I am a Baltimore, I am a street drunk. You know, there was parties everywhere, you know. If there wasn't a party, if they didn't have booze at the party, I brought my own. See, I didn't believe I was an alcoholic, but you know, you don't have a party without drinking. I mean, it don't make sense. I met my first husband in a bar, he didn't drink. That was baffling to me. So I was cutting, baffling, and powerful before I got here. It was like I didn't believe this. You know, how do you sit in a bar and not drink? It just didn't fathom. You know, he'd had Sprite and smoked Salems and just didn't, you know, I didn't believe you couldn't be an alcoholic. You know, I didn't believe I was an alcoholic, like I said. I wasn't a hard drinker. You know, towards the end of my drunkenness, this is what happened, and I'm going to share that experience with you because I think that's where the surrender comes in. But I've surrendered over time in the rooms as well. So don't think that, in my experience, I don't think it's a constant, you know, just a one-time surrender. That it, like he shared at 2 years sober, I like to call I call it the terrible twos. You know, I think I know everything in AA up to 2 years sober, and then all of a sudden I don't know nothing. You know, and then I get the 5-year menopause where I don't really want to be in AA anymore. You know, and they all don't know what they're talking about, so I got another surrender at 5 years sober. You know, and then I got the 7-year itch where like, screw them all and I'm out of here. Not that I did leave AA, but it's the this mental factor of this disease. It's mental, physical, and spiritual, but the mental factor will kill you. You know, I heard like speakers, I'm a conference person myself. You know, my sponsor got me right into conferences and internationals, and you know, I've done all the traveling. I didn't know that there was life outside of Baltimore City other than Ocean City or West Virginia. I think that's the furthest I've ever traveled in my life. Now I've been everywhere. I went to Texas, I went to Minneapolis. I mean, it's like California. It's like, oh my God, AA is a great travel service, I tell you. So I get to the end of now I had a blast drinking. I'm the products of the 80s. Still love 80s music today. If you get in my car, it's classic 80s all the way. You know, it's Aerosmith. Whew. I still think Tyler is just sexy. He's just so sexy. But I have to surrender to the facts. I'll never go out with Steven Tyler too. You know, it's like a lot of surrenders in my life. But my husband is with me today. I like to thank him for traveling. He don't care. He knows I'm a nut. He lives with me. And I have to surrender to the fact I'm not perfect. Come live with me, you know? You know, I think people now this is just an opinion, and that's okay. I have opinions in AA. I have no opinions outside of Alcoholics Anonymous, as our traditions say, but I have some opinions. You know, people share from a podium that, oh, life is great, it's wonderful, I'm so spiritually fit and blah, blah, blah. And I surrender to the fact, like, you're full of it. Come live with me for about a month. I'll show you how spiritually fit I am. It's a practice, spiritual practice. It's not perfection. So I had to surrender to that fact we're not perfect either, because see, I tried to be perfect and it almost killed me. So if anybody's new in this program, there is hope. Just stay around a while, you'll find it, you know, it's here. It is here. It's within you. See, all my life I looked outside of myself for the hope that I was always seeking, but it was within me. It was inside. I tried to find it in the men, they didn't have it. I tried to find it in the money, that didn't have it. The 5-bedroom house, the cars. I had 3 kids because I thought, you know, your kids has got to love you. You know, they have to love you. You born, you know, I always told them, I brought you into this world, I can take you out. You know, it's like, they're supposed to love you. No, they're not supposed to. I found out in my spiritual life that I'm just the vessel that brought these human beings to this earth so that they can have their own spiritual journey and experience. I am not in charge of them, believe me. I have children in their 30s today. And they have children, I have grandkids, I have 18 grandkids. Yeah. That's why I said, if you think somebody standing in this ponytail, your life is, yeah, come live with me in 13. Well, not all of them at one time. I got 7 at my house right now. 7 of the 13 grandkids, so. But 19 years of experience in this surrender that they describe in coming, you know, to the rooms of AA. See, I didn't believe I was an alcoholic till I got here and stayed sober. That's when I found the nature of how powerful this disease is. Not drinking taught me about alcoholism. You know, taught me about this powerlessness that they admit in that first step. And it's not just over the booze. I'm powerless over everything in my life. I have no business. My sponsor told me, she gave me these ideas that I place upon people, that I'm not only powerless over alcohol, I'm powerless over people. I'm powerless over things. I'm powerless over all of life's stuff. That the only power I have is in that second step. And once I tap into that, it doesn't matter what anybody thinks, says, or does. I'm okay as long as I'm connected to that power. And I'm okay with you as long as I'm connected to that power. But as soon as I disconnect from that power, I place judgment. I place expectations and I place demands on everything and everybody. Because see, alcohol has nothing to do with this powerlessness. It's the way of life I was living that I was powerless over. I couldn't control things the way I wanted to control them. That was the surrender I had to come to terms with. You take the booze away from me. See, booze helped me to live that madness. It was like my temporarily solution. And towards the end of my drunkenness, it wasn't even taking those thoughts away. Like I said, you know, when I got here on August 9th, 1998, I wanted to drive my truck over a bridge every day. You know, I grew up in, like I said, a home of alcoholism, but that doesn't make me an alcoholic. I just saw alcoholic behavior. And my behavior was just like that. You know, you always have that one person in your life where you say, well, I'll never be like that. Well, I grew up just like that, and maybe worse, you know, because I'm an alcoholic. I like to be better than others, you know. So worse than that was I brought home people into my home who mentally and physically abused my children. One of my children were molested in the process. This is all part of the journey of my surrender. I had affairs because, you know, if he ain't doing it right, I'll find somebody who will. Because I thought sex was love, and it wasn't. Sex is the byproduct of a loving relationship. It does not replace it. Everything has a temporary effect, and I only know this through my process of surrender. But little did I know that I could have brought people in my home I could have brought diseases into my home that could have affected my family. I didn't know all this until hindsight. Because see, I always thought that, you know, I was only hurting myself. I used that. I'm only hurting myself. I ain't affecting them at all, you know? You know, every once in a while I'd drop a $10 here, or buy them a Christmas present to make up for my guilt and shame. That was part of my surrender when I got here. I was so full of guilt, so full of shame. How do you give a child back their innocence? Talk about 9-step amends. I needed a free babysitter. That was my excuse. That's why I brought this person into my home. I was molested as a child. I know the effects that produces on a kid. I can't give back that innocence, but I can ask for forgiveness. I think that's the greatest gift that we have, is forgiveness. So there's a lot of surrenders, and I didn't know this was all a part of my journey when I got here. I didn't know that was a part of what makes me who I am today, because that helps others to recover from alcoholism. My experience, those steps that I took as a way of life, so that now my story helps another woman to surrender to the fact that maybe she has this disease. And that was all a part of my upbringing, is a part of the disease. That's the mental part. The physical part, at the end of my drunkenness, I was shaking like a leaf. I couldn't remember if I went upstairs or came down. I was losing my mind, wanting to drive my truck over a bridge every day, and those are sober thoughts. I just gripped that steering wheel so hard, and I thought, well, maybe if I just go over this bridge and my truck would crash on the railroad tracks underneath, that they'll all be happy now, because I'll be dead. I mean, that is the most selfish, self-centered thought in my entire life, and didn't even know it until I've recovered. Like, me dying is going to relieve them. I had a sister who shot herself in the head. I saw the devastation my family went through. And you know, I had a resentment toward her because I wanted to do exactly what she did, and I didn't know how to find the power to do that. And I saw the devastation that our family went through because of a suicidal death. And my thought was, where do you get the power to do that? Because I've been wanting to do that for quite some time. You know, my husband today says it best. You know, if suicide is our only option to this thing called alcoholism, how worse does it have to get? That was my thought. Suicide was the greatest thing on me before coming into the rooms of AA. And only the drink took it away temporarily. And I'm just like Rich, you know, I delved into all the other stuff to keep me up for a couple 24 hours, because I was a blackout drinker, and I loved to drink, and, you know, once I blacked out, I didn't know what happened. Everybody else told me what happened, you know. I'm a puker, and I, too, you know, got to have 2 beers before I go out and drink, because you don't just go into a bar and start drinking. You got to, I call it priming, you know. We don't, you know, I tried to make excuses for my drunkenness. You know, I never went out to say I'm just going to have a few. I always said I'm going out and get drunk. You know, and I don't think that's normal non-alcohol thinking. Like, I would go out and have 3 beers, you know, I'd go out with my first husband, who is a non-alcoholic. You know, he'd have 3 beers and he'd want to go home. I'd have 3 beers and end up in somebody else's home that night. So there's the difference between an alcoholic and a non-alcoholic. You know, I'd have to start a fight with him because that guy over there was really looking at me, and it had to be about me, that I'd have to fight with my husband, because it's hard to be single in a bar when you're with your husband. It just doesn't work. Yeah. So these are some of the surrenders, you know. I had to surrender my dignity, my self-respect. That's all a part of the surrender. It's just not admitting that I'm an alcoholic. There's many of surrenders. Shame, guilt, pity. Oh my God, self-pity was my best. You just don't understand. Do you know what he did to me? It's all about me. So now, had a blast drinking. I did in the 19 years of my drunkenness. I get to the point at the end of my last, I didn't know, you know, guys and ladies and men, guys and girls, I did not know this was going to be my last drunk. It's not like I planned that I'm going to wake up in AA the next morning and surrender to the fact that I'm an alcoholic and everything's going to be well, you know. I didn't know this was going to be my last drunk. So that's how much power I had over it. You know, powerlessness goes way beyond just not drinking. So my last night of drunkenness, this is how it happened. 2 beers in the shower, you know, got to have my little hangover remedy the next day because I'm a puker, you know, and I black out. So I make sure that, you know, when I go to bed, that I hit the bucket next to my bed. Like I said, I puke, so I got a bucket next to my bed. I got a little towel on the edge of the bed because if I miss the bucket, you know, and I get sick, it gets on the sheets, then I got to change the sheets because, you know, he's got to get bit with me too, and it's just like, so I got the towel and I do a couple of little trial runs, you know, lay down and tilt my head over to see where the bucket is, and this is before I get drunk. Now, I don't even know if I'm going to hit that bucket when I get home, but, you know, I got to prepare myself just in case I end up in bed and the room starts spinning and I start throwing up because, you know, that's just how I drink. Most of the time I end up on the bathroom floor because it's nice cold ceramic. Oh my God. Or the toilet. Oh my God, the cold toilet. You know when you flush that toilet and that spray just like... You know how I don't know, I used to love this lady, Agnes, God rest her soul. Me and my husband, we grew up in AA in South Baltimore is where I first got sober. And Agnes used to always tell this story, and I'm going to share her story because she cracks me. And I love laughter. I love the Rule 62, don't take yourself so damn serious. It's like, you know, we're not a glum lot and all that good stuff. The book describes that if an alcoholic doesn't, you know, newcomer doesn't see joy in recovery, then they ain't going, I didn't want it. I didn't see joy when I first came around here, and I'll share that experience because that was all a part of my surrender. But I remember this lady, she was always telling this story. She said she'd, you know, take a while upstairs and getting dressed, and I did the same thing, you know, got to starve myself for 3 days so I could drop a size to get in smaller clothes. Not that I'm not small already, but I'm fat, you know, the way I see me. So I'm a size 5, but I got to be a size 3 because all these guys love skinny girls. That's what I believe, you know, this delusion I'm living in on a daily basis. So I'll take, you know, a couple pills to make me not eat for 3 days. And then I'll, you know, lay down on the bed and get that size 3 jeans and suck it up. And God help me when I got to go to the bathroom because I'm a beer drinker. And once that's done, those jeans don't get zipped back up for the rest of the night. Which I guess would be easy access after the bar closes, but, you know, it's just like, you know, I'm down there and I'm laying, I got pulling it up, sucking it in, and man, I look good, you know, like, well, you got to get the hair all like 80s with the wings, you know, and the fluffing, and I never was a makeup person, so, you know, got to look good, and then by the end of the night, your wings are down here, they're like floppy dog ears, and, you know, you got the black raccoon eyes, and I'm looking good, you know. As they always say, you know, you go to bed with you go in a bar with a 10, but you wake up with a 2. I remember I've done that, and I was probably a 2 on somebody else's morning wake up, but, you know, she always talked about how she would go upstairs and get all ready, and, you know, she'd suck it up, and she's coming down the steps, and her dad says, well, where are you going? And she said, I'm going out. And he said, you are? She said, yeah. He goes, you look like you should be coming in, you know, because she's like all like bloated and stuff. And then he said, you look like a 10-pound ham stuffed in a 5-pound can. Yeah, it was just like, you know how loving our fathers are to us when we're in our drunkenness? You know, so here I go, got my little remedy set up. Got to have somebody to take me and pick me up because I believed I don't drink and drive. Now, I remember going out drinking, but I don't remember know how I got home because, see, at the end of the night, if I have a Pepsi, I'm able to drive. Even though I drank all night, that Pepsi justifies that I'm sober now. So I've had the Pepsi, I can get home. I don't remember getting home, God knows, but that's the only one who does know is how God knows how I got home. So now I'm like, gotta have somebody take me and pick me up. Well, lo and behold, guess what? My son just got his learner's permit. See how God's working in my life way before I get to the rooms of AA? You know, that's what I see in hindsight, no, it's not true. God doesn't do that to us. But I remember, you know, my thought was, this is like one of those proud moments in your child's life. And here's how alcoholism not only affects me, but it affects my whole family, because I'm thinking, oh, my son can take me and pick me up. You know, they said he had to have a licensed person in the car with him. Now, they didn't say they had to be coherent. They just said they had to have a licensed car. You know, somebody in the car with them with a license. So I had my license at the time. But alcoholism affects our children the same way. And his thought was, Mom, don't worry, you won't have to drink and drive anymore. I can take you and pick you up. And I used that part of my surrender, using our family for our selfish needs, you know. So off I go. I woke up 3 times that night. I'm a blackout drinker, like I said. I remember one time I woke up, I was standing next to my sister's friend that was out with us and singing karaoke. You know, I was a karaoke singer, thought I was great. Till I got sober and went karaoke singing one time, and that's the first time I've ever sang karaoke since I got sober. You know, you just revisit the atmosphere because you think you're missing something, like the book says. You know, we think, oh, it's got to be there. And then when it ain't happening there, it's got to be somewhere else. So, you know, this is what happened. Well, it wasn't there, so now we got to go to another bar because it's got to be happening over there. So now I'm at the other bar, and I'm doing the electric slide in the opposite direction of everybody else because I'm a good dancer, you know. So, you know, the bar scene was always where I was at. You know, like I said, if it wasn't alcohol involved, I can only see this in hindsight, I wasn't going. Alcohol ruled my life, and I didn't know that until hindsight. I had a cake at my daughter's 13th birthday party because I figured somebody might want to drink. It was me. I wanted to drink, you know. So now I'm out there and I'm doing the electric slide and I'm falling all over myself and everybody around me, and my sister picks me up and she sits me on the foot of the bar stool and she says, all right, Doreen, just stay there. Do you ever get so drunk where your mind's like, I ain't done yet, but your body's like, yeah, we're done. Let's stay here. And my mind's like, no, I'm not done yet, and I gotta, you know, I still gotta go. I'm not done yet. I didn't know this was my last drunk. So I remember blacking out again, and then, well, I don't remember because you can't remember a blackout, but I blacked out again. And I woke up and I'm standing in the middle of a city block, and my sister-in-law is right there, like ahead of me where that door is. I yelled for her to wait up, and she said, run. Now I just described the condition I was in at that bar. I can't even stand, and I take off running. And I hit this curve, you know, where they cut them out. I call them handicap ramps so that the wheelchairs can get up and down the sidewalk. Well, I hit this ramp full force, went straight out, and my face just bounced right across the asphalt. And I remember sitting up in the middle of the city block, and most of the people that were on my amends list were family because, like I said, I had no social skills, so I didn't want to talk to nobody at the end of my drunkenness. I mean, I remember my kids were inviting, you know, their friends' family, you know, mother and fathers over to dinner. I was like, you know, I was just tired of impressing people. I was just sick and tired of just, like, what do you say after hello? Just, I want to die. That's what I want to say at the end of my drunkenness. Would you just kill me, please? You know? So I'm sitting, you know, I hit this handicap ramp, and I'm sitting there in the middle of the street, and I reached up, I grabbed a handful of blood, and I come down. And my sister-in-law looks at me and she goes, oh my God, Doreen, please don't touch your face. I said, Debbie, it can't be that bad. So we get back to her house, and I'm sitting on the edge of the tub. And at that time I was in the medical field, and so it's like my natural instinct of medical kicks in, clean the wounds. So my lip was kind of hanging off. I shoved that back up into place, and I remember I kept saying, Doreen, please don't touch your face. I said, Debbie, it can't be that bad. She said, look. There she is. As I can describe her today, that is not who I am today. But as I describe her, as I see her in hindsight, I say the monster stares back at me. That's my surrender. I looked at me that night, And I didn't realize this until I was probably about, I would say 10 years sober, that I stopped blaming that night. Because I said to myself, what the hell did you do to yourself this time, Doreen? I didn't say, what did he do to you, or what did those kids do to you? I said, what did you do to yourself? See, all my entire life in my drunkenness, I blamed him. I said, if you had a husband like mine, you'd drink too. And I used to always say, you know, those damn kids just don't listen anymore. It's all their fault the way my life's turned out. I never wanted kids in the first place, you know. The first one, you know, I remember I went to get birth control pills and found out I was 2 weeks pregnant. It was a little backwards, but, you know, I was living with the thoughts that you don't have a child out of wedlock, so I had to get married. I lived by the dictates of others my entire life, and I didn't know that the reason I hurt so bad and wanted to die when I got to the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous is because I needed to live by the dictates of a power greater than myself. I was living the way everybody else wanted me to live, and I'm dying a spiritual death in the world of society. And I had to surrender to the fact that everything that I was truly searching for in my entire life was nothing more than to connect to this power and live by the dictates of that power. And it wasn't their fault. They don't know. The book describes that in the 4th step. It says the world in itself are spiritually sick people, and I didn't know that. Thank God there's a solution. Do you know, in our big book about Alcoholics Anonymous, I think it's the first 4 chapters that drills it into our heads over and over again about this disease before we make that the surrender in the 2nd chapter. So what do? I had the fall. I get home, I call a member of Alcoholics Anonymous. I avoided this person. It was my brother. He had 4 years prior to me coming into the rooms of AA. See, I thought that if I went near my brother, he would rub off, and I'd become an alcoholic. So I didn't want to I didn't want this disease to rub off on me, of course, you know, because as the book describes that if women are called alcoholic, that, you know, I thought it was a disgrace. I mean, come on. Women can't be alcoholic, because all the drunks in my life were men. All the alcoholics I perceived as being alcoholic were men. You know, I had a husband. I had kids. I was managing well. So I thought, because that was the delusion I was living in. You know, but didn't know about those thoughts. What me driving a truck over the bridge every day. And like I said, those were sober thoughts. So now I call this member, I'm back at my house now, and you know, I'm sitting on the edge of my bed, and something happened, and I believe this is where God also entered briefly into my life. I've opened my heart up just enough to the fact that possibly I might have a problem with drinking. You know, because I saw the busted face. You know, I had surrendered to the fact it wasn't their fault anymore. So now, you know, maybe I might be alcoholic. So I called my brother, and he came over, and he did exactly what a member of Alcoholics Anonymous does. He set the sister name aside. And it was one alcoholic talking to another alcoholic. And he shared his experience with me that morning. It was 4 o'clock in the morning. He likes to call it the alcoholic hour, because he says everybody in the family that gets drunk and decides they want to get sober, call him 4 o'clock in the morning. I think there is that spiritual window that we have the opportunity between 3 and 4, that God enters into our minds when we are just open enough, but sometimes we shut that window. But thank God mine was open long enough for my brother to show up. And he took me to my first 2 weeks meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous. He said, Doreen, you need to do these steps. You need to get a sponsor and, you know, home group. He gave me the litany of what we hear. And I'm like, okay. I went to meetings with him for 2 weeks. And then I heard a person share from a podium that go to as many meetings as you drank. So I didn't really go to meetings on Tuesdays, so I stopped going to meetings. I mean, I never drank on Tuesdays, so I stopped going to meetings on Tuesdays. I tell you, you give an alcoholic that is untreated an opportunity to get out of these rooms, they will find it. Because I found it. So I stopped going to meeting on Thursdays because I really didn't drink on Thursdays. I could justify why I do what I do. And that's part of the nature of this disease as well, and I didn't know that. So I started kind of backing up, and women are giving me their numbers, and I'm throwing their numbers away because I ain't like you people yet. See, I thought I was better than you when I got here, and I didn't know I had to be equal to you. There's no better than, there is no less than. I am equal. My story will help somebody, and your story will help someone too. And I had to surrender to that fact, that everybody has a purpose in these rooms. Because see, I thought my story was the only story and everybody needed to listen to it. That I was stealing other women's pigeons. When my sponsor told me I could start helping women, I was taking, you don't want what she has, you want what I have. Get over here. You know? I was like, get in my car. I started like control that had nothing to do with home life. I tried to control people in the rooms too, so I had to surrender to the fact that there is a God and I'm not it. Third step. I controlled how other people spoke from a podium, because I go home and judge you, and they just don't know how to do this. They don't know how to do this thing called AA. You know, like I think Rich was talking about the, you know, they ain't doing it right. I was sponsoring the world, if I could, you know, and neglecting the family at home. So I had to surrender to the fact that, you know, the book describes that these principles of the program lie ahead in our home and our workplace. So I had to start staying home and being a mother. You know, I had to practice these principles in my work life, like stop judging people. Because see, prior to coming in here, I thought everybody at work was talking about me because they were over there amongst themselves talking, and it had to be about me. So I would go over and ask them, who are you guys talking about? They're like, we're not talking about anybody, Doreen. And I'm like, oh, but it's got to be about me. You know, because my head is screaming, it's about you, Doreen, it's about you. Go over, ask them, go ahead. They're going to tell you it's all about you. You're going to get fired. So I thought I was going to get fired, so I quit a lot of jobs. I was a good worker, but see, my mind was telling me I was going to get fired, so I quit. Because see, I don't like rejection, so I'd rather get the hell out first. And that way I feel like I did, you know, I was the one that made the decision to leave. Ask my first husband, I left him 3 times. And I've tried that in the room, you know, and I hate to admit it as well, but this is the ego deflation that is necessary to stay in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. I've done that in my current marriage. When things don't go the way I want them to go, what do? I leave. That's my default mechanism. You don't do what I want you to do, I'll get the hell out. See how you like it. Because I didn't know in my history that I never had the love that I believed that I needed in order to survive this thing called life. And I used them to give it to me. And when they left, I was lost. My family life, my parents were never lovable people. Like I said, I lived in that environment where things were thrown. You would just get so used to grabbing your plate, because if you didn't, you ate your food off the floor or the wall. Because my father loved to flip things, you know. My mother, every Christmas and Mother's Day, would get a new kitchen set, because by that time, the one we had was destroyed, because he liked to flip stuff. You know, especially kitchen table while you're eating. So that was another surrender. So like I said, there's several surrenders, but here's the central fact for me, is when God entered into my heart and my life, that changed my whole idea about being an alcoholic. I was going to these rooms, women would give me their numbers, and I'm throwing them away because I'm not like you people yet. I got a home, don't you know? I got a car. I got 3 cars. 2 of them was working, you know? I got a career job in the medical field, And I can't tell people about those thoughts wanting to drive a truck over a bridge every day, so I put on my happy little AA face and my work face. You know how you got the different faces? You know, put on my face, go to work. And, you know, I want to die on a daily basis, and I can't tell people because, see, they put my sister into a nut house because she told people she wanted to kill herself. And I can't tell them now. I'm a people watcher, too. I watched my family, and I tried not to do what they were doing. So now I'm like going to these meetings, and people are telling me, you know, go to as many meetings as you drank. So I'm cutting back on Tuesdays, I cut back on Thursdays, and never really drank on Sunday. You know, what's really drink? You know, when you're talking to an alcoholic of my type, like the book describes the real alcoholic, that I resemble myself little when you put a drunk in me. You know, I never made a sober thought to go out and sleep with another man or my husband. They were all drunken thoughts. You know. So now, what do you mean really drinking? You know, you got to justify it to me. You know. So, you know, I never really drank. 3 beers maybe? Is that really drinking? No. That's a primer. You know, but when those 3 beers go in me, then I got to go out. If I don't touch those 3 beers, I'll just be miserable. But you put those 3 beers in me, and I'm not like staying home now because I got to go dance. See, beers get me dancing. I got to go out to the bar. I got to have fun because that's what I believed, you know, that's what alcohol was about, having fun. So now I got the, you know, I was sitting in these rooms and people are sharing their experience, strength, and hope with me, and I believe I heard it here. But I didn't hear it here. And I think this is where the surrender has to happen. I think there's a book out, I think it's called The Road Less Traveled, From the Head to the Heart. So when I came into the rooms for the first 90 days of Alcoholics in Alcoholics Anonymous, the first 90 days, I listened to your stories, and I constantly kept justifying why I wasn't an alcoholic. It wasn't until I was sober in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous that I surrendered to the fact that first step was 100% in place for me. Surrendered to the fact that not only am I powerless over alcohol, but I'm powerless over everything in my entire life, and still am powerless over the day. Because if I'm not tapped into that power, I will use and abuse you to no end. So I have to stay connected to this power, or I will cause more damage as life goes on. So I remember I'm sitting in the rooms and I'm hearing, you know, this, you know, blah, blah, blah. Everybody started talking like Charlie Brown's teacher. You know, my brother's like, gotta get a sponsor, Doreen, you need to do these steps. Women give me the numbers, I'm throwing them away because I'm not like you people. Here is my surrender as I see it today. I couldn't have told you then. You know, I think Rich said it as well as, you know, my surrender and recovery is 20/20 hindsight. So I'm standing in my shower and I'm crying. God, I can't do this anymore. I can't keep going to these AA meetings, putting on my happy little AA face, acting like everything's okay when I want to die inside and it's scaring me to death. And I want to drink so bad, but the fear of drinking is on me. I identified with that in Bill's story, where he said fear sobered me for quite some time. Because I was afraid of that picture and that face in that mirror. I did not want to be her anymore. I wanted the pain to go away. You could talk about booze all you want from a podium, but when people shared about wanting the pain to go away and that they hurt so bad when they got here, I identified with the hurt. I identified with the pain. Because see, I wasn't a daily drinker when I got here, so I had no idea what that meant. I knew I was a drunk. I knew I drank. I knew I blacked out, but I didn't know that I wanted the pain to go away. That's what sold me on Alcoholics Anonymous. When you shared about your pain, you know, when you shared about how you hurt your children, because my children were hurting. You know, when you shared about having those affairs, because see, I thought I was the only one having them. That's how I identified when you shared your pain. That helped me to surrender to the fact that I was an alcoholic. I wasn't seeing no joy when I got here. And no disrespect to people that share, you know. I had my first, I don't know if you want to call it temporary or not. I think everything's temporary and God's permanent. You know, the girls I sponsored, you know, they call me, they're like, what do I do? I was like, well, here's my experience, that's all I have. But anything other than that, I don't know what to tell you. Because I could kill you if I try to give you unsolicited advice. I tell you my experience. If I don't have it, I'll find somebody who does. Because there's a world of experience in AA, you know. And I remember I'm sitting sitting in my living room. That sentence in the book described the restless, irritable, and discontent. I didn't know what that meant because I'm not like intellectually damaged. But I know I felt it. You share your feelings with me and I will identify. I know I had this coil in my gut and somebody was turning it and turning. You know, it's just like that sickness you can't get rid of. It's like, if I could just, I can't even vomit and get rid of it. It's just, it sits there like a ball right here in the gut, right in the center. And I remember I'm sitting there like, my daughter said something to me and I snapped at her. Now I'm 90 days sober, mind you. Definitely wasn't I just was coming to the rooms, but I wasn't in AA yet. I think there's a big difference between hanging out in AA and actually doing a 12-step program. In a 12-step program, it's probably good to do the 12 steps if you're in a 12-step program. I was just hanging out. I was enjoying the fellowship. I loved my brother and I followed him everywhere because, see, I like to attach myself to people. Because if you look bad, that makes me look good, you know. I had a lot of people I was attached to that were bad people because it made me look good. And I remember I'm sitting there and I'm getting ready to go out to this meeting that I wasn't willing to go out to because my brother's sponsor told me twice. I didn't know what a resentment was, but I think I had one. I remember I'd show up at that meeting and he kept saying, you know, oh, yeah, I'll be there this time. This is like, I'll give you a couple of chances because, see, I'm a people pleaser. So the third time he told me he was going to be there and I was like, I don't know. I don't think he's going to be there. And it was like 2 blocks from my house, so I remember, well, I can go, you know, I could walk there. So I'm going out to this meeting that night. And I like to say that the first part of the first step was in place when I came to the rooms on August 9th, 1998. I've had 2 surrenders in that first step. When I saw that face in the mirror and I stopped blaming everybody else, that was the first part of the first step. But it wasn't until the second part of the second step came into place when I was 90 days sober. I knew nothing of 90-90. I didn't know what all that meant. All I know is I had never stayed sober 90 days in my entire drunkenness. But maybe I could do it. I don't know. So I'm standing in my shower and I'm crying, God help me. I want to drink so bad it scares me to death. I've had no mind or mood altering substance. That's not AA's business, nor is it any of mine because it's not my experience. I remember I called one of the doctors that I worked with and she gave me a thing called lorazepam. I think it's a generic for Valium. And I held it to my mouth and I went to take it, and somewhere along the lines my brain was listening because I wasn't. But I remember this thought crossed my mind, Doreen, total abstinence. If you take that pill, you're going to have to change your sobriety date. So I threw it down the toilet. That's just my experience. And I prayed, didn't know the serenity prayer, but somehow I knew it before I got here. I don't know where it came from. I don't even know where that serenity prayer, it was in my mind. And I used it and I abused it because I did not want to drink. So I get to the rooms, you know, I'm standing in that shower and I'm crying, God help me, I can't do this anymore. I like you people, but I want to drink so bad it's scaring me to death. And I love the way it talks about it in the ABCs. It says, you know, we were alcoholic and could not manage our own lives. That probably no human power could relieve us of our alcoholism, and that God could and would if he were sought. I didn't know that was the language of the heart. God could and would if he were sought. I knew I was powerless over alcohol. After the fact, I stayed sober for 90 days because that drink was on me and I didn't know what to do. It scared me to death. And I showed up in that meeting that night, and there was a woman standing there who was my sponsor today. If you're not grateful for your sponsor, I don't know what to tell you. My sponsor never told me what to do. She said, Doreen, this is what I've done. I don't tell the women I sponsor what to do. I say, this is what I've done. It's our history. You just heard it today. Bill was laying in that hospital. When he had that experience, he said, you know, there may be 100,000 people out there that may want this experience. He says, and all I hope for them is to pass this on to someone else. We can't keep a free gift. You got to give it away. And my sponsor was there that night, and she talked on all 12 steps. And my heart was hurting, and the pain was great, and the drink was on me. And that second part of that second step came into play because I was not only powerless, but I knew I had no control over this disease called alcoholism because I couldn't admit I was an alcoholic. I could say it, but I couldn't admit it until that night when I knew I wanted to drink so bad it was scaring me. I don't know if there's any gift in this world that I could ever give somebody other than that surrender that night that I felt. I can't tell you how to surrender, but boy, can you feel it. I felt it through every fiber of my being. And I showed up that night, and my sponsor stood there, just as I stand here today, with gratitude in her heart, and knowing that this message was about carrying it and not keeping it. Because she talked about God and the 12 steps like I had never heard, because my heart just opened just a bit. To the point where she talked about being a shell of a woman, and she said because of those three things, God, the 12 steps, and sponsorship, she said for those three things is what she gave credit to. She never took credit. She said those three things, she became a shell of a woman when she got here, to standing comfortable in her own skin. I don't know any other loving language than the heart than that, because my heart broke. Something snapped, and I wanted what she had. I didn't know the language of the 12 steps. I knew the language of the heart because mine was suffocating. I was killing God, and I didn't even know it. I suffocated God for so many years, and it took the Alcoholics Anonymous and that woman to talk about being a shell of a woman to open me up to the fact that there may be hope for me yet. That's the surrender that's necessary in order to live this way of life. It had nothing to do with the meetings. The meetings are important, because I was going to these meetings and I still wanted to drink. It wasn't until that crack happened that my heart opened to the fact that I want to be comfortable in my own skin. That was the spiritual experience that she passed on to me. And she always said to me, Doreen, there's nothing to know. See, I saw that big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I'm like, oh my God, they're going to test me. I test myself. I test myself. It's no longer their fault. My husband today talks about it all the time. He says that I met the enemy that night on August 9th, 1998, and the enemy was me. So if you're new, or if you've been around here for years and you're still suffering, it's all a part of the journey. Because it wasn't until November the 15th of 1998, 90 days sober, standing in my shower, that my heart opened to the fact that this thing could work for me. And my sponsor talked about being a shell of a woman and being comfortable in her own skin. I didn't know the language of Alcoholics Anonymous. I knew the language of the heart that night. Thanks for letting me share.
Thank So, epic job there. All right, my name's Ron, I'm an alcoholic. We got a daunting task ahead of us. We have to feed all you guys. It's lunch, right? And we have to get you need something? Feed me. Feed me, he says. Okay. Some of you try to get a smoke break in while we line up. We're going to try and do that very quickly by that, what you call it? What do you call that room there, the serving room? Please get the food, go around, okay? We have an unbelievable lineup for the rest of the day. Let's get this eaten, let's move on. So let's, thanks for coming out, and let's get the, close it up.